Hi, today I'd like to talk to you a bit more about the lesson plan assignment and go over a couple of details and emphasize a few things that I want you to pay attention to in this assignment. So on the screen in front of you, you can see we're in weeks 5 to 9, the lesson plan section. You should be looking at this video right now and we'll be looking at the assignment. But I wanted to point out the required activities, a lot of videos, okay? Uh, Kitchen Table Talk on Lesson Planning Essentials. Gagne has a very good 9-step lesson approach, different types of lesson plans, making lessons stick, uh, curriculum alignment, that's an important thing, and then some samples and templates. And of course, there's your submission area where you hand your assignment in. So let's take a look at the assignment just briefly. Okay, everybody can see that all right? Okay, so here's the assignment. 2 parts. Lesson plan, 10%. That's the first thing to remember. So basically what you do, as it says on here, you take from your profile or your outcomes guide one aspect of what you want the students to learn. In the CBE approach, that would be an objective from your DACOM or your profile. In the outcomes-based approach, you take a set of skills or one skill, a theory, some sort of a cognitive thing that you wanted to get across, perhaps a problem, maybe a scenario or a situation, something like that that you want to focus on, and you develop a lesson plan around that. Remember the tractor course that I was designing earlier in the competency-based framework? One of the things that I would want to do a lesson on, for example, would be naming parts of the tractor. So I might just pull that off. Now, a lesson generally varies in length. If you're at a college or university and you're in 50-minute slots, then perhaps you should do a lesson that's 50 minutes long. If you're at a workshop, I wouldn't do the whole day because that's a day plan. I would break it down into maybe an hour or half an hour. The main thing to remember, as you'll find out when you're going through these videos, is that a lesson has a circular aspect to it. There's a beginning and an end, and it goes around sort of in a circle. You introduce the subject, there's some sort of teaching, instruction that goes on, then the students get to practice. There's feedback during the lesson by the instructor, and perhaps peer feedback. Then there's some sort of an assessment to see whether everybody's on the same page, everybody's got the lesson, a closure, and a bridge to the next lesson. So that's kind of a circular model of lesson planning that we'll talk about in the next couple of weeks when you're looking at these videos. And that is what you should focus on. If that takes 15 minutes, it all depends on how complex the lesson is. It's better to break things down into smaller lessons and make sure the students are getting things as they go through than to just do a huge, like 3-hour extravaganza with a whole bunch of stuff in it and have everybody confused. Okay, so that's the lesson plan. It's due at the end of week 6. And the important thing I want to emphasize here, I've talked about it before, is we have staggered due dates because we're encouraging you to hand in your work for feedback. Now you can choose not to do that. You can choose to hand in your work on the last day of the course. If you do that, you won't get any feedback. You'll get a grade and you won't be penalized for it. If you hand your work in, your lesson plan in, for example, at the end of week 6, then I will give you feedback and a provisional mark. Then you can take that and you can look at the feedback and refine your work and hand it in again. And the mark could change for the better. It's not going to change for the worse, that's for sure, unless you somehow or other you manage to mess it up from where you were. But in that case, I would probably talk to you and say, oh, what happened here? But the idea is that, and it's the most powerful way to learn, is you get feedback, you act on that feedback, you learn from it, and you do better work. And then you get credit for that work. That's how I'd like to work this. Okay, so if you have any questions about how I'm approaching this, please let me know. Send me an email. Okay, so that's the rest of the lesson planning. There's the rubric for it. If you have any questions about the wording on the rubric, if you're not sure about what it means, Again, let me know and I'll discuss it with you in greater detail. But that's what you're aiming at. I'm hoping that you're aiming at a high 3, 4, aim for the stars, right? The second part of this assignment is the lesson plan rationale, which is basically answering these two questions, okay? What I'm looking for here is, did you think about what you were doing when you were planning the instructor activities, the learner activities, the resources, the media, the assessment in the lesson? Is it aligned with the complexity of the objective, or is it, for example, too easy or too hard? Are the instructor activities in keeping with the cognitive difficulty of the objective? Are the learner activities relevant and at the same level? And are the assessment activities relevant and at that appropriate aligned level of complexity? That's what I'm looking at there. The second one, of course, is extremely important, is how are you going to make sure that the students are in a positive learning environment? Because as we all know, we've all been there at one time or another in a classroom where we're stressed out and our brains are basically empty. We're not learning anything, and it's not a fun experience. So how can you set up students in a winning or a win-win situation? So you win, they win, everybody wins, people learn, and they feel successful. That's what I want to know about. Okay, here's the rubric for that. Breadth and depth of thinking. That phrase you'll see a lot. What does that mean? Well, breadth means, did you leave anything out that's relevant and important to the conversation? And depth means, how deep did you go? Did you do a superficial job of it? Did you take 5 minutes and dash it off while you were driving to work? Or did you spend some time, do some research, get some references, personalize it, come up with some insights that really blow my socks off? That's what we're looking at there. Okay, so that's the lesson planning assignment. Good luck with it. And if you have any questions, again, please let me know right away. Thanks. Bye now.